Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And I am so excited about my guest today. Not only is he a fellow C-suite networker, we love our C-suite network folks, but we're going to be talking about something that is absolutely, positively, maybe the most critical part of doing business. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say we all do it wrong. So, let me go ahead and introduce my guest, and then we will jump into this, because now that I've piqued your interest, I think we're gonna have a great time. So please join me in welcoming Per Sjöforsis to our program today. Welcome, Per. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much, Deb, for having me on the show, and I'm looking forward to this conversation. And you're right. Not everybody's doing pricing wrong, but many does.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell people a little bit about you, and then we will dive into this.
Sure.
So you are known as the Price Whisperer. I love it. You've even trademarked that. You are the Price Whisperer. You are a thought leader and author in everything pricing and how companies can use pricing to drive higher growth, sales volume, and profits. Per is a sought-after speaker for various conferences. He appears regularly on podcasts and business radio shows, and he gets routinely quoted in the financial and business press. Yep. So, short bio, long career, and all sorts of distinguished things that you have done. But tell us, I always like to know a little bit more about how it is that my guests got to where they are today. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, it's a story here, and I had first of all, one of the reasons I'm calling myself the Price Whisperer is not I didn't invent it. I was called the Price Whisperer so many times that I decided
you just finally said, "What the heck?"
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and because I've been helping so many companies with their pricing challenges, and but the background here is that I ran a couple of companies before I moved here to the US in the mid 90s, and once I moved here, I ran several companies as well, and in these instances we did experiments with pricing. Some of those experiments were very successful, meaning that next quarter revenues are up 25%. And some were complete duds. And what I had learned in business school and could read about pricing was so theoretical and so academic that it was useless.
Right.
It didn't help us in any way understanding why some of those experiments worked or not. So 14 years ago, almost 15 years ago, when I decided I was too old and too opinionated to be a hired gun, I said to myself, how about develop a process that would make every pricing experiment a success?
Okay.
Right. And that is the process we're using. And in short, it's about using online market research that is very different than what you will get from a market research firm.
Okay.
And from that, we can predict sales volume and revenue at different prices. Obviously, if you know how price affects sales volume and how price affects revenue, you can set the right price. Out goes guesswork. Out goes looking at a competitor who is guessing, right? And but that's just the first step in the process. But it's worked. We helped, I don't know, 700, just under 750 companies and probably 3,000 products or 4,000 products or something like that, or services, I should say.
Right.
So.
And as I said, pricing, I think, is something that almost every business gets wrong.
Yes.
And you've written a great book. As we record this, it's not quite yet out, but it will
Yes.
be very soon. So,
Yes.
folks, you can look for that. But it's called The Price Whisperer, a holistic approach to pricing power.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, it is a very detailed book on how to be doing all of this. But, I think that the biggest takeaway that I got from the book really is that we do it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is, obviously, when we do it wrong, we either leave money on the table, so we're
Yep.
pricing things too low, or we don't make enough, and then we go out of business, or
Yeah.
we have other problems.
Mhm.
So why is it that you think that that we I think our pricing model for many people is guess, throw a thing at a dartboard. I mean,
Yeah.
it really is something where people they don't sit down and think about it. And why do you think that is?
Well, first off, let me share some statistics, which I think is interesting.
Okay.
We did a study a few years back when we asked a statistically significant number of American CEOs. Well, first off, any company runs from profits, or from
Right.
cash, right?
Mm-hmm.
And cash comes either from the operation or from investors,
Mm-hmm.
from nowhere else, you
Right.
know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the cash, which is profits, any company has profits are only there's only three variables that change profits, and it's the cost, it is the sales level of whatever you sell, and it's the price of whatever you sell, right? And so we asked a significant number of American CEO, which of these three affects profitability the most? And 82% said sales volume.
Which kind of makes sense. Sell more, make more.
Well, that's true, but also your cost goes up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you sell more.
You're making more, so you have more cost to make them.
But price, it just changed the top line.
Mm-hmm.
And let me give you a couple of recent examples of people who were grossly underpriced. And we did what the process of going out, measuring what people are actually willing to pay for the product. And in this case, it was it's a consumer service company. We took them from 200 million to 250 million annually in 3 weeks.
Wow.
With no change in cost, right? Another is a membership organization, smaller company. We took them from about 15 million to 35 million in 6 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, no change in cost, right? And this is the beauty. And it's sort of funny because you mentioned my book, and I also have a masterclass on the website, and I do this one-day seminars for companies also on teach them how to run pricing. And I reached out to some of my prior clients to get endorsements for the book. They read it and they wrote something nice. And one client, a prior client, he wrote that your teachings pair took us from 100 million to over 1 billion.
Whoa! Did you say, "Excuse me, I think I need a cut"?
I almost did. I'm sure I'm going to get more business from now.
And that's actually more valuable. And of course, their testimonial is incredibly valuable.
Yeah. And this is the power of pricing. And what I'm talking about in the book, again, the book is also called The Price Whisperer, and that is the key is to take that holistic view on pricing, because pricing doesn't live in a vacuum.
Right.
Everything you do in your company affects pricing, or affects what you can charge. And this means that to really gain the maximum effect of pricing, a company needs to understand which customer profile are the most desirable. Means not only those who are most willing to buy your product or service, but those who are willing to pay the highest prices for it.
Right.
Okay. So they're the most profitable customers. Then likewise, understanding what product features, functions, or benefits, or of course services, that also leads to the highest revenue and profits.
Right.
So those are the ones you want to focus on. Focusing on the marketing channels and marketing messages that leads to the highest sales volume and revenue. Focus on the sales methodology and the sales messages and so forth that leads to the highest revenue. And then, of course, have a segmented and discriminated pricing strategy that minimize friction and maximize revenue.
Right.
That's why this makes that's how you have a holistic view. It's not just pricing as a number.
Right. And I think so many people do think of it as just the number.
Yeah.
Many folks look at what their competitors are charging.
Oh yeah.
And figure we're going to charge a little bit more or a little bit less or exactly the same.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is, of course, first of all, do your competitors have their price right?
Exactly.
And as we said, probably not.
Probably
but
not.
more important, there's so many other variables that are in it. Unless you are providing the exact same thing, and everything else is exactly the same, then you shouldn't be basing it simply on your competitors. They might have more costs, less costs, more value, less value, all of those things. So, it's something that I think people should consider. I mean, you don't want to charge $10 when your competitors are charging $100, because then people go, oh, there's no value in that. Why would we want that? Right. But, so you do need to know competitor pricing, but it shouldn't be the only place that you're using to set your price.
Yeah, you absolutely you absolutely need to know competitor pricing if you can. Many times if you're in B2B,
right? Sometimes you can't find it, especially if it's a service. You can't find out what it is.
The thing that really spurred me to do this was that I was CMO for a data storage company. We had these massively scalable data storage systems. And pricing was not part of my charter at the time. It was done by the strategy officer. And what he did was, try to figure out competitors' prices, meaning that we went to friendly customers, joint customers, and stuff like that. And the best, first of all, they don't want to tell what the competitor charge. But sometimes we could get a price list, but it was always incomplete, or it was last year's, or it was maybe the international price list, or something that was incomplete. Then, because it was data storage in that industry, there's sort of the sort of cents per megabytes or gigabytes or whatever it was at the time. And so then we came up with a price, and to then that was on a very shaky background, because it was based on incomplete information. And then on top of that shaky price came a fluff factor, because the company said we're a little better than competition, so therefore we add that
the brag factor. We're better than them.
And it was, and then of course in the end, salespeople were sent out and with instructions to take the deal at any price.
Right. Yeah. So it didn't matter what you'd done; just make the sale.
Yeah. And it was $68 million were invested in the company, and they got $9 million back in an asset sale.
Oops.
After bankruptcy. Yep. So and that said, this really spurred me that I said to myself that I needed to take my interest in pricing, my long-term interest in pricing, and actually do something with it. to make sure that there's a better process than what this particular company used. So
right. And when I was reading your book, I was taking all these notes and thinking, oh my gosh. And so I'm just going to kind of randomly start jumping through stuff.
Yeah, sure.
And it was interesting. I was having a conversation just yesterday with a friend of mine, and she was saying she didn't know if she had priced what she did right.
Yeah.
And she is a service provider. And she said, she couldn't get any information on what her competitors did because it was personalized for each person she works with. So she couldn't say, okay, this one does this and this one does this, so I should pick the middle or, anything like that.
Yeah.
But she also, and after reading your book, what I told her, I said, I don't care what you're pricing at. I don't think you're high enough.
Yeah.
And she was a little perplexed. And I said, you are providing what I would consider to be a luxury service. So not something that, every Tom, Dick, and Harry and Jane are going to buy. This is something that people are willing to pay more for. And I kind of knew this, but your book obviously, it brought it home, was the fact that if she didn't charge very much, the people who were expecting it to be a luxury item wouldn't buy it because they didn't see that she was a good enough value, a high enough value. I'm not quite sure how to say that.
Yeah, well, I think we've all been there. We either physically or figuratively hold something in our hands and say, I kind of want to buy this, but it's so cheap that it can't be any good.
Right. Even if it is good, there's that little voice in your head that says it's going to break, or something.
Let me tell you a story about that. Another customer, they what they have is a phone system up in the cloud. So they sell business to business. The research and the measurement of what their market was willing to pay show that they were grossly underpriced. So we said, you can quadruple your prices, right? And they did so, not overnight.
They didn't scare everybody half to death.
Yeah,
but,
over about a 9-month period, But two things happened. And the first thing was that their sales volume went up with 25%.
Wow.
The second thing that happened, and I'm using the technical term the CEO used when he told me about this, he said, and we got rid of the bottom feeders.
Right.
So our customer support costs have gone down with 80%.
Right. Because the bottom feeders often complain the most, bitch the most. I mean, want the most customer support, all of those various things. They're the most difficult to deal with in many cases.
Price-sensitive customers are there only because of your low price. They don't learn your product.
Right.
Okay. They don't care about your company. They are not loyal because as soon as there's a cheaper alternative,
they're going to buy it.
Yeah. And whereas with the more professional customers that this company has, that's, now they could start to grow and, they're doing really well now.
Right.
And the first thing was getting pricing right.
Right.
So it's I think, I've done this for a while now, and I think it's fascinating because it makes such a big difference, and that's why I wrote the book,
Well, and in the book you talk about really sometimes it's not a big difference. I mean, tripling a price, obviously it depends on what it was, but sometimes it's a small increase makes a huge difference. It's
a tripling or quadrupling our price is very unusual, obviously, but it and sometimes you actually want to lower prices on some products. If you have a suite of products, you want to lower prices on some, you want to increase prices of some, and some you want to stay where they are, but the going back to this holistic view is about understanding on who are the customers you're going to target to sell to, what are you going to sell to them, how you're going to message is, what is the sales strategy and the pricing strategy to create that holistic
Mm-hmm.
understanding of how you can take a company to the next level.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, so that's the beauty of pricing, I believe. You know,
You know, years ago, I worked for a firm in Colorado, and it unfortunately has gone out of business. But and it was a marketing and PR firm, and we
Mhm.
never told people, we never posted pricing
Mhm.
because it varied
Yeah.
depending on who we were working for,
Mhm.
which we were able to do. I mean, some things like Walmart can't do that,
Mhm.
but a high-end boutique might be able to. But
Mhm.
I remember the owner of the firm. I was fresh out of school, and it was a great place to learn. And one of the things he told me was, charge what the market will bear. And I was just thoroughly confused by that, because
Yeah.
I thought, okay, you had to be like Walmart and you set your price, and that was it. And there was no negotiation or anything. And his point was, if, say, we were going to be working for a law firm,
Mhm.
a high-end law firm that
Mhm.
charged 150 an hour.
Yeah.
If we said, it goes back to the conversation I was having with my friend yesterday. If we said, okay, we're only going to charge 50 an hour, they might go ahead and work with us,
Mhm.
but they might not respond on time when we asked them to, all these various things, because again, they devalued it. If
Mhm.
we charged them 150 an hour, they went, ooh, oh, they're our kind of people.
Yeah.
But if we were, say, working for a nonprofit, then our rates would be greatly reduced.
Yeah.
But we also, in many cases, provided less services to
Mhm.
them. And I think
Mhm.
that's one of the things that people forget is, if you're fluctuating your price, you can do, things and say, okay, well, I'll do it for less, but you're going to get less.
Yeah. But I mean, what you described in a way is price segmentation and discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
But you you aged yourself, you know.
I did.
A,
I know.
a lawyer for $150 an hour is
I know. Yeah,
yeah.
you're not going to want one of those, right? For most things. That's
and
their clerk or their
yeah, yeah, no, yeah. I think even paralegals are charging more at
right.
this stage, you know. But you're absolutely right, and this is what companies need to understand, that
Mhm.
they need to have segmented and differentiated pricing strategy for different customers,
Right.
and they also, you know, you talked about looking at competitive prices, and the circumstance around a purchase is going to lead to different willingness to pay,
Mm-hmm.
right? And as a seller, this is something that you should benefit from.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm using this this story as an illustration, you know, and say that you're running low on gas, right? And you're on the way to the hospital with a sick child, right? Your willingness to pay to fill up is going to be much higher than if you're on the way to the in-laws, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because the
Even
circumstances,
if you like the in-laws.
even if you like them, yes. And that means if you're selling a physical goods, and you have maybe rapid you charge for rapid delivery, you charge extra for rapid delivery, you can charge extra for all various things when there's urgency, right? And then having discounted versions of the same thing when there's no urgency, right? But this needs to be managed and monitored. Again, an example here of a client who said they were selling specialty lamps of all, the kind of lamps you have to drive the screens in the cockpit of an airplane,
Oh, okay.
So
Oh,
very
real
specialized.
specialized.
Yeah. And the CEO of this fairly small company said, all right, so we had this one customer, they bought 1,000 of these lamps, right? and they got the 1,000, the discount for 1,000,
right, 10% off or whatever.
Yeah, whatever it was, And then 6 months later, they came back and ordered 100 lamps, and they got the same price.
Right?
They should know.
No.
And there is a process that companies want to make called a price waterfall, where in a company you go through the entire process from order to money in the bank, and look at each stage, and you want to find out in each of the stage, is there room for a mistake here? And if so, how can we
up or down?
Exactly, yeah. Because there was obviously somebody who just by probably being lazy said, I'll just make a copy of the last invoice and
they paid $10, they're going to pay $10 no matter what.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So but there needs to be a process for this, right? And this process is always going to be different, and it's going to change with times, because there's new process, new business processes, there are new people,
there's pandemics.
Yeah, there are all different reasons. So that's one thing that a company should do to mitigate what money they leave on the table. But still, we're talking about, this is something that may maybe 3-4% of a company's profit may leak out.
Right.
The first time you do one of these waterfall exercises, and from then it's like 1.5%.
Right.
So it's not the kind of doubling of prices that you can get when you really understand the willingness to pay and the reasons for buying that you have in your marketplace.
Right.
So
and that comes in knowing who your target market is, your avatar, your whatever the heck we want to call it, and truly knowing them, knowing, not just, hey, it's a 55-year-old man, okay, first of all, what's his income? What are his likes? What are his dislikes? I mean, knowing as much about them as possible before you actually go to try and start doing the pricing.
And why is it so that 55-year-old man is a better target than let's say is a 55-year-old man with an interest in woodworking, and he has a certain willingness to pay for this device you want to buy. But it could be that a 45-year-old man with an interest in gardening have a higher willingness to pay, right, for the same product, right? And it could be a product that is related to woodworking or related to gardening, or neither, But you need to know that, right? And let me tell you another story, which is sort of interesting on this. I think is interesting, at least. We worked with a university that is on their fee structure. That is, it's one of the Catholic universities. And Catholicism is declining in the US, right? In general, right? And so at this university, they saw their potential for business going down. But they also said that there's a lot of immigrants coming from Middle and South America that are Catholics.
Yeah, they're very devout.
And so they had tried to do education in Spanish. They have tried to do very generous, what do you call it, grants and stuff like that.
Scholarships.
For these people, and it completely failed. Right. So when we did this, we went out to their marketplace, and we found that there was actually a portion of Latinos, right? If that's the right word to use, I'm not sure. That actually had a much higher willingness to pay, and we found we found that there's about 3 million households, 3.5 million households in the U.S., which are run by second or third generation, right? that
Right.
speaks English, right? They want the children to have a highly Catholic university experience, right? And they're willing to pay 50 grand a year for it.
Wow.
Yes.
As opposed to
So-
trying to go after the people that you have to offer scholarships to, or they can't come at all.
That's right. And so, and the 3 million, whatever, 3.5 million households, we know where they want to learn about education, or university education, what drives them to buy, what news sources they like, what marketing messages they want. And this, for this university, those 3.5 million households is money in the bank for the next 25 years.
Right, because they're going to have children and so on and so on.
Yeah. But they had really tried using their gut feel on what a potential Catholic.
They saw the big number and they went for the big number.
Yeah. I mean, that's the Chinese sneakers syndrome,
Right.
But instead, it was focusing on this very, very specific target.
Right. And when I talk to people about their target market and I say, you need to niche down and get it as close as possible, one of the first things they say is, but what about those other people? And I tell them, those other people are very nice other people. But if they're not going to buy from you or at least refer to you, then why are you bothering to communicate with them? And it's the same thing with pricing. If someone isn't going to pay that price, low or high, or in the middle, I mean, whatever it is, then don't bother with them. And it's not a negative against them. I look at, say, and you used a lot of examples in your book about cars.
Yeah.
Mercedes-Benz, Lamborghinis, I mean, the high-end type of vehicles are not going to be advertising on, say, Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah.
That's not who's going to buy their cars.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, the reason I'm using cars, and I'm saying that in the book, is because a lot of the statistics are public information.
Right.
I mean, I could have used something else. I mean, lawn mowers or
but we can all relate. Toyota, Benz. Okay, there's a difference, right?
but I need to also be able to have true information that is not my customer's information to use. But you're absolutely right. It's and focus. If you think about focus, focus is about saying no, right?
Right.
I mean, you sometimes see these folks that I'm going to focus on the entire market. Well,
right. No,
that is not focus. And it's hard to say no. It's really hard.
Right. Because we assume we're turning away business.
Yes.
But if they wouldn't have done business with us in the first place, we're not turning it away.
No, exactly. Yeah. And also a lot about pricing is, I mentioned profits and cash, right? You want to focus on the profile of your customer that has the highest willingness to pay. Again, like this college story, they see how they could focus on a very small niche that had a very high willingness to pay for the specific differentiator of this particular university. Which was that they did good education, but specifically education in a Catholic environment, right? Which is not for everybody.
No. And if they're still wanting to serve that other market, there are ways they could do that. They could have free online webinars or something. I tell people, you've got a book that you want, you have a book that you want people to buy.
Yeah.
You can do a smaller version of it or the first chapter or something as an ebook. And there's a lot of ways where you can still be providing your service, your information, whatever, to people but
Mhm.
then, you're paying clients or you're paying clients.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. But and sort of on that note, if you like, I'm working on a guide to pricing power,
Mm,
which is obviously a very condensed version of
mhm.
some of the key items that we
Right.
discussed
Mhm.
here today. And I mean, the book is much more expanded, and
Mhm.
I also have a masterclass,
Mm, mhm.
which is 19 video episodes,
Wow. Mhm.
4.5 hour content,
Mhm.
that is available to buy.
Mhm.
I spent a lot of time developing it. I
Mhm.
want to
I
have some
bet.
money for
Mhm.
it. Um, and I have a guide for how to increase prices.
Mhm.
I mean, this is also most of my clients are CEOs,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And they come to me, and this is the story I hear over and over again. They say, I have not dared to increase prices
Mhm.
a cent for the last 7 years.
Mhm. We'll lose customers.
We not only we will lose customers, we will lose all our customers,
Mhm.
and we will go bankrupt,
Mhm.
if I only increase price
Mhm.
1%. No, that's
Yeah,
not going to
you'll
happen.
lose some, but if you do it the right
Maybe.
way, you'll gain even more.
Yeah, you can gain, or you have
Mhm.
but when we're talking about small price increases like 3-5%
Mhm.
or in that kind of range. um I mean, I speak to the CEO, and he just talk about just increase prices and see what happens. And then I speak to him later, a couple of months later, and they said nobody noticed.
Mhm. They just paid. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mhm. Right.
But of course you do want to, if you really want to take your company to the next level, you should really have that understanding
Mhm.
of willingness to pay and customer segmentation based on willingness to pay and so
Mhm.
forth. And I have another example here. A SaaS company, they first we worked with them. We said you can increase prices with an average 41%. They had at the time 17,000 customers.
Mhm.
So they increased price on the average
Mhm.
41%. The CEO got one angry phone call and two angry emails.
So 3 out of 17,000.
Well, and nobody canceled.
So he
Notice,
appeased those 3
yeah,
and
and that was it.
Mhm.
You know. Then the following year we said, well, why don't you double your prices?
Mhm.
This time, I think they lost 3 or 4 customers.
Mhm. But
You know,
again, those were probably the bottom feeders.
yeah. Well, this was about 6 years ago,
Mhm.
and the company was just north of 10 million.
Mhm.
It is now about 120 million.
Eh, just a slight increase.
Yeah. Why?
Mhm.
Because they've taken the additional cash they got from the price
Mhm.
increases and poured back into the
Right.
company.
So they bought more equipment, more employees, all of
Yeah,
those various things.
yeah,
Mhm.
and more marketing, more
Mhm.
salespeople, all that good stuff
Mhm.
too. So they became more competitive.
Mhm.
They could better serve their market,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And that's how it works.
Mhm.
That's how it works.
One of the things you talked about in your book is, when you're raising price, like you said, sometimes they don't notice,
Yeah.
but it if you communicate to folks and say,
Hmm.
here's why,
Hmm.
then usually they're okay with it.
Yes.
And I'm thinking about big oil right now, right? We're
Yes.
right in the middle of the well, we're not in the middle of the pandemic, but all sorts of things are making gas. You're in LA. I don't know
Yeah.
what you're paying for gas, but it's a lot more than what I'm paying. But it's over
Yeah.
$4 a gallon
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And the problem is that the oil companies are saying, "Oh gosh, we had to raise our prices because," and they give the litany of,
Yeah.
war, supply, da da
Yeah.
da da da. But then you also see they're making record high profits.
Yes.
And so that, now it is a commodity. So people are still going to buy it. They might
Yeah.
decrease a little bit, but you don't want to anger people is
No,
what
you
I'm
don't.
trying to get at. And so,
Yeah.
if you're raising your price, just tell them why and
Yeah.
be honest about it and have it be truthful.
Yeah. There is something that I strongly believe in, and that is that there needs to be ethics in pricing.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that
don't charge more just because people will pay for it. Well, maybe.
well, no, there
That's
needs
not
to be
an
a reason.
ethical thing, right?
No, it's not an ethical thing. And I know at one point, for example, I said no to a company. They wanted our help because they had some kind of medical device that would increase the outcome of somebody have a heart attack,
Right.
and they wanted to maximize profits.
An example is how much they've been charging for insulin.
Yes.
It's I mean that gets pretty shady.
Yeah, and so I think that the oil companies today have crossed the line to unethical pricing.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're all public,
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we can
you
all
can
see
get those numbers.
Mm-hmm. We can get those numbers, and hiding behind the fact that of supply chain issues and the war in Ukraine and all different things, is just completely take away their credibility if they had any in the first place, but it's also, as a company, you're not supposed to. Well, I mean, in a way you are supposed to, but as a company, you take whatever opportunity you have to increase your profitability.
Right. I mean, there is this thing called capitalism.
Yeah, but it also. But if you look at certainly the younger generation, they're making their buying decisions highly depending. I mean, on the sort of the social aspect.
Right. Oh yeah. What are you giving back to the community?
Yeah.
Are you environmentally friendly? All of those various things.
And of course, what's happening in for gas is that a lot of the millennials and Gen Zs and stuff like that, they don't even get a driving license.
Right.
They say, why should I? Why should I support these guys? They have ethics that doesn't match with my ethics. So
and it'll be interesting to see on the electric cars, because right now they're priced out of where most people, that where the average person could buy them. And there's other things, where do you recharge, all those various things. But I mean, that was obviously one of the big things. People went, "Ooh, this is great." And then they went, "Wait a minute. The batteries cause horrible things when you dispose of them." So maybe, and so, it's, people look at those things.
Oh yeah. And actually, although I'm an old fart, I do the same thing, I do make a lot of my buying decisions are based on the ethics of a company.
Right.
So if we go to gas now, for example, we're one car family. I work from home. My wife work from home, and why do we need two? We need. Does it clash? Sometimes, but not very much.
I mean, if there's Uber, there's Lyft. I mean, there's cabs. All sorts of things.
Yeah, exactly. But it's also a choice of using less resources, not only oil and gas and stuff like that. But anyway.
Yeah, it's and people really do, they look at all of those things. And again, it's, if you're saying, okay, you give X% back to the environment, or we recycle, all of those things, it does need to be truthful.
Look at Tom's shoes. For every shoe you buy from Tom's Shoes, they give some shoe to the developing
Right.
world, you know.
Yeah. Bombas
It's not-
socks, same thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
And it's not the same shoe.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It is not the fancy shoe. It
No.
is your basic shoe.
Yeah.
Same with
Yeah.
the socks. It's a
Yeah.
black sock, you know, one size fits all. I mean, this is
Yeah.
not complicated.
No, no, it's not. But this is just going to be more and more important. And from a pricing perspective, it becomes so important to know from the seller's point of view, is this important for the client? Does it affect their willingness to pay?
Right.
And so how much? And what is the true target here? And what do they want to hear in terms of messages and so forth? So you can be because you still have to be a profitable company.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Even nonprofits make money.
Oh yeah, they do. Yeah, they
you
do.
have bills you have to pay. I mean,
yeah, exactly. And it's that's very basic stuff, you know, that you can never ever forget that at the end of the day you have to make a profit.
Right.
And if you don't make a profit, eventually you will run out of cash, either cash from operations or cash from investors. And obviously we had some outliers. I mean, Amazon is an outlier because they could operate unprofitably for, I think, 13 years.
They got a lot of money in the bank.
They got it. Yeah. Well, but look at Amazon today. Their resulting profits are like 1.5% of revenue.
Right.
That's not very much.
Right.
We have Elon Musk's companies who continue, they all lose money. And as far as I know, at least, and they are being supported by investors,
right?
In the hope that at one point, they either going to become profitable, or that he's going to be able to sell these companies, or investors are going to be able to sell these companies and recoup all the stuff they invested.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. There's an online platform that I do for networking. It's called Lunch Club.
Yes.
And it's free to join. Yep. There's no advertising. It is not in any way monetized. Yep. You know, and the nice thing is there's starting to get a little bit of advertising, but you can skip over it. I mean, it's really easy to not have it. And, you know, I researched it because I'm thinking, what the heck? You know? And they are entirely funded by venture capitalists.
Yeah.
That's where it's come in. And I know, you know, I'm a smart enough cookie to know that what they are looking at is being bought out by somebody else.
Yeah, clear.
You know, and my assumption is based on the way they've set this up, and this is purely anecdotal. I have absolutely nothing besides my gut to think about this. I think they're aiming for like Microsoft to buy it to incorporate with LinkedIn because it would make sense. You know, but yeah, they're hemorrhaging money. But they know or hope that they will be bought out and at least be able to bring them back to zero. Hopefully they'll make a profit. I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah, and I've been on Lunch Club for a couple of years actually. And it could actually be that they sell your information, you know.
They could, yeah, because you put in some basic demographics, you know, and well, some
if you
things
use
like that.
if you use their video platform, maybe it's all recorded and transcribed and sold. Who knows?
Yeah, you don't know. You know, you have to.
Because I clicked OK on the terms and conditions, you know, like everybody else, you know. Yeah. I didn't read the 40-page document.
Same thing with all the social media platforms. I'm like, yeah, whatever. But you brought something up earlier, and I'd actually made a note to talk about it, and so I want to go a little bit more about it, and that's discounts.
Oh yeah.
You know, and you mentioned, you know, somebody who gets something when they buy 1,000 then expects the same price at 100. So you've got a tricky thing there, but just in general, you know, but I only paid X last time. How come you're charging me more this time? But as you point out in your book, discounts aren't bad. You just have to think about how you use them.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things with discounts, and I see these companies. Well, first of all, we in the methodology that I developed way back when, and that we're still using, we have a way of measuring how price and like I said, how price affects sales and revenue, but we can also measure how discounts affect sales volume and revenue.
Right.
And the first thing that is sort of interesting is that after making hundreds of these measurements, we know that a discount steeper than 20 to 25% is not going to lead to more sales, right? It's just going to leave money on the table, right? Also, a discount below, less than 10 to 15% is not going to be effective. And then I'm getting from a prior client here, I'm getting a whole flurry of Memorial Day discounts for our product,
Oh yeah, we always get
where they give away
President's Day sale, all of those,
and they give away 45%, right? They just leave money on the table, and if you're discounting too much, we said that price, if you have low price, too low price, buyers is not going to buy because the price itself means sets an expectation of inferior quality.
Right.
And this has been proven again and again. There's an academic field called behavioral economics. And one of the things that's been proven again multiple times is that to cure your headache, a 5-cent aspirin is not nearly as effective as a 50-cent aspirin.
Right. Aspirin's aspirin.
Yeah, exactly. But the price makes a difference. It sets an expectation of the benefit, and not only so a too high discounts also sets an expectation. They said, if I see a too high discount, I said there must be something wrong with this product.
Are they getting rid of it?
They're getting rid of it, or this is it end of life, and when when it shows up and it doesn't work, is the company going to be gone? So we'll have to be very careful with discounts. Then there's this other thing called price walls, and we haven't talked about that at all. But these are psychological price points where small price changes makes for a very considerable change in volume. And what you want to do with your discounts is that you want to set a price to maximize the perception of value. Then you want to discounts so that you are just on the right side of one of these price walls, right? And to do this, you need the data. But it also means that you then have the price that sets the expectation of value, and the lower price of a discount that increase willingness to buy. That's how you need to do it, right? And because a discounted price and a low price is not the same thing.
Correct.
And with I mean, there's on this there is a sort of rule of thumb in retailing, right? Saying that if your store your store brand cannot be lower in price than 15% below the main brand, because then it won't sell.
Right. Yeah, because then it's too cheap.
It's too cheap. Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
And so but discounts should be used, but they should not be used indiscriminately,
Right.
So
and they're weird, like I always say, you go into a store and it's buy one get one free.
Yeah.
Well, I only need one, so how come you just don't mark that one off 50%?
Yeah,
of course, they don't do that because they're probably doing it to clear inventory, and all sorts of things. But yeah, it's like, but then I also think in many cases I'm going to go, or the consumer, well, I don't need to, so I'm not going to buy them at all. So would it have been better just to discount than to do things? And that's where you, as you said, you have to test all of these things.
Well, no, you don't. You can test it, but testing is, and let me think. If you think about this, testing, you can test, but it's say that you're going to test 6 different customer profiles. you're going to test 6 different features or benefits.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to test 3 different marketing channels with 6 different messages.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're going to test 3 different sales channels with 3 different sales methodologies, right? And then you're going to test 6 different prices
Mm-hmm.
that are discriminated 6 different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And you end up with 15,000 combinations.
Right. And everybody just went,
You know, so instead what companies do typically is that they test a couple of marketing messages
mm-hmm.
independently.
Mm-hmm.
Then they test a couple of prices independently.
Mm-hmm.
And which is why this is almost, unless they're really lucky, this is just inconclusive.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And what I'm saying that in the methodology that we use, a company get the answers to all of this,
mm-hmm.
all of it,
mm-hmm.
in a matter of a few weeks,
mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Instead of testing 15,000 things.
Right.
You know?
And it really doesn't matter what industry you're in, what size business you are. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit more complicated if you are the person, that's say the lawn service provider who's, I mean, but you can still, basically figure a lot of this out.
Well, you can get close,
mm-hmm.
right? But it's still, I think in all the projects that we've done, and the thousands of products and services that we've measured, a company has been right on with prices,
mm-hmm.
Maybe for a dozen products
mm-hmm.
out of 3,000.
Right.
Okay. So, and some get it completely wrong that we discussed.
Mm-hmm.
Many are, they're within range.
Mm-hmm.
But again, making tweaks to prices to add 10-15% revenue,
mm-hmm.
That are all profit.
Right.
Okay. This is what we're talking about in real life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, we haven't talked about this either. If you look at public companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the average, a 1% increase in I should say a 1% decrease in cost leads to on the average, a 5.5% increase in profitability.
Wow.
And 1% increase in sales
mm-hmm.
gives an average 3.5% increase in profitability.
Mm-hmm.
But a 1% increase in price
mm-hmm.
or decrease in discounting
mm-hmm.
leads to an 11.3%
right.
change in profitability.
Right.
And profits are good.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think it's important to note that it's the percentages, not the amounts, that we should be looking at. So whether it's $5, $500, $5,000, it's the percentage that you're looking at. Yeah.
And think about this, the lot of companies are using cost-based pricing, mm-hmm. right? So say you have a price that is a product that costs them $50,
mm-hmm.
right? And they double that, so the price is $100. Right. So they make $50.
Seems to make sense. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they make $50 in profits, or margin, I should say. And then for whatever reason, they manage to reduce the cost to $40. Means
mm-hmm.
that the price now suddenly is $80.
Mm-hmm.
And they just lost $10 in
right.
margin.
Mm-hmm.
Because the margin is now $40, mm-hmm. not $50.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right. Yeah. The
it's
math,
fine to reduce
mm-hmm.
the cost, but have the price be the same.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, oh my gosh, Per, this really is very fascinating. And I'd love to have you on again, because I think we need to talk about, especially the small guys,
mm-hmm.
How do they determine, what it is that they're doing, because a lot of them, they're just not going to have the data.
No.
They don't have the capability to do that. So I'd love to talk about that some more.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But yeah, so we'll definitely have you on again. But in the meantime, how do people find you and work with you?
Well, I obviously my company have a website, and I got a weird name, so it's Sjöfors.com, SJOFORS.com. You can find me by doing a Google search on the Price Whisperer. You can find specifics on my book by typing in Price Whisper book or pricewhisper.me for me. So there are many ways, and then just do a Google search on the Price Whisperer and I show up.
Cool. And the services that you provide, you talked about, you've got an online course. You've also got several, you work obviously with individual companies going in and consulting with them.
Yes. It's not so much consulting as that what we do is that we go out and we define all the stuff that we talked about here.
Okay.
Define willingness to pay in a marketplace, define the most desirable customer, defines the product or service features they should push, define how they should market, define how they should set up their sales, and define their price list and their pricing strategy.
Right.
And we but we don't really consult in the way that we leave this up to the company to actually implement.
You don't say it should be a 1.2% increase.
Well, we do actually, but it's up to the company to
if they're going to do it or not.
Yeah. And but I do know that most of our clients implement most of our advice.
Right.
Few does all of them. Few does none of them. But why that is, I don't know.
It didn't match their, well, my gut feeling is.
Oh, I've heard that before. I've heard that. But actually, what we typically hear is, oh, this was good to know because I had a hunch. And then they also say, but I had no idea about this.
Right. Oh, yeah. I love it.
Yeah. So.
Well, oh my gosh, Per, this really has been fascinating, and I can't wait until we talk again because
all right,
it's a big book. There's a lot of information in there. I mean, we just barely scratched the surface.
Yep.
So until then, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Well, I think you want to think about pricing as a lot more important than most people think it is. This is you need to work actively with pricing. It's not a set and forget. And I talked about the importance of pricing from that 1% perspective. Look at what 1% increased price would make in terms of profitability for your company, right? In terms of margin, gross margin for your company. And then I have something I call the 1% challenge. And the 1% challenge is tremendously easy. It is, have you ever failed to change anything 1%? Of course not. And you start looking at, if you're like an average company, you start looking at how can I take 5% price? And like an average company, your profitability has gone up with 50%. Right? How can I take 10% price? What do I have to do? And double my profitability. That's how you need to think about pricing. For any company, whether you're a solopreneur,
any company.
whether you're a solopreneur or whether whether you're a Fortune 50 company, same thing.
I love it. Well, Per, this has been absolutely fascinating. And as I said, I can't wait to do it again. I've been talking with Per Sjöfors. I'm Deb Creer. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Thank you so much, Deb, for having me. And this has been a great conversation.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.